Good morning, Margaret.
Good morning.
Morning, everyone. We're just waiting for a couple more of our committee members to join to have a quorum. So it'll be just a moment or two.
Ben, should we get started? And if Doug joins us, he can take over as chair.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Would you go ahead and call the roll, Alex?
Okay, we're going to bring the December 1st, 2022 Ohio City Design Review meeting to order. I'll call the roll. Margaret Lamb,
Present.
Chris Lozier,
Here.
Antonio Marinucci, Marika Shuri Clark, and Doug Wall, and myself present. All right, so we have the three of us here.
And just a note for the recording, so Marika has had to leave the committee because of her appointment to the City Planning Commission. So we're now a committee of 5, so we do a quorum with the 3 members present.
Thank you, Ben. All right, Ben, can you call the first agenda item?
So our first agenda item is the Maple Court Townhome projects. Is anyone here to represent that?
That's Antonio's project.
Hi, this is James Asimus, one of the residents. Let me see where Nia's at.
You know what, since Nia is not present, maybe we'll take the second item first and wait for her to come in. We can present you second. Does that make sense, James?
Sure, let me see where she is.
All right, Ben, call the second item.
Okay, so our second item today is 41 West and Goldie's Donut signage, 4005 Lorraine. And I think Mr. Bischak is here to present that.
Hello. Good morning. It appears my connection is not good because I can't hear anyone speaking. So, let's see. Does everyone hear me?
Mike, we can hear you, but we cannot see your screen.
Okay, got it. Now I'm hearing you. All right. So I've not been to an Ohio City meeting in this particular type of forum. So do you guys put the drawings up, or is that something I'm supposed to do?
We will put the renderings that you submitted on the screen.
Okay, all right, sounds great. So I'm here on behalf of Goldie's and My Place Rental or My Place Group with regards to signage on this building. We're proposing 3 signs. The first of which is, actually, if you could flip to the second page. Yeah, okay, let's start with these. These are the 2 kind of matching signs. These are at the entrance doors, on the canopies at the entrance doors, above, just above the entrance doors, to both the apartment building and the Goldie's retail bakery. These letters are individual channel letters, will be mounted to the canopy. The faces will be opaque, the sides will illuminate. The sizes of them are relatively minimal at around 6 and 5 square feet. And they will, if you flip to the renderings, we can take a look at that end of it. There's the elevation of donuts. There should be an elevation of 41 West as well, but here's a photo elevation though. It shows how those letters will be set on the front of the canopy, and will provide identification to the apartment entrance and the bakery entrance. If you could go back to page 1 now. Sorry about the order of the drawings. This is a small blade sign that will be located at the western corner, at the west end of the Lorraine Avenue frontage. It's basically at the southwest corner of the building. Will be perpendicular to Lorraine Avenue traffic, and it's meant to identify Goldie's a little more prominently to that traffic. The sign's a routed aluminum sign face. The gold parts will light up, and then it also has reverse channel individual Goldie's halo lit letters. Now, if we go to the renderings again, there's several views of this. I think there's 4 or 5 views. You can see it on the corner there. That's kind of looking from the sidewalk across the street. And there's a couple of street views as well.
Mike, is that image that we have on our screen there, is that to scale?
Yes.
So the prior rendering showed it about 54 inches. 54 inches seems larger than that. I could be mistaken though.
I believe the canopy 60.
Okay.
I believe the canopy.
It just struck me as a little large at the onset, but if that's to scale, then that doesn't seem so out of scale.
Yeah, the building is it's a little challenging as far as locating any signs with you know, the balcony, the false balconies, the canopies, the canopy support arms. So we looked at various different options, and we actually had a couple of additional signs that we ultimately determined were not needed. One on Randall Road. There was going to be a small logo sign on Randall Road, and another one at the pedestrian height below the canopies. Those were omitted from the project, though.
Okay. And
the sign is actually about, if you measure it a perimeter, it's basically 12 square feet. Now measuring, if you measure it as a square, it's, I don't know, 15 point something. I
And
think
that's
I
the
lost-
correct- and that rendering shows the placement of it there on the towards the bottom of the second floor.
Yes, we had to go, our first preference was where the camera is, but that would have impacted the camera.
That was going to be my question. Is there any way to put it in the sign band being illuminated and, you know, on the same level as the apartments? I'm a little concerned that it would impact the residents.
We spent a bunch of time going through this with the building owner. The ownership really preferred that it actually be up at that level. That was their preference. Because we originally wanted to put it.
Are they living in that corner unit?
They have to deal with them.
You know.
Like that Seinfeld episode with the fried chicken sign.
Oh, right. It's not quite that bright. I mean, if you go back to the illuminated version on page 1, the letters are lit. I mean, it's essentially an indirect lighting for the lettering, and then you have those small shapes. Those are only 6 inches in height, and then you have that. I don't know. It's approximately a 1 inch kind of outline. This is not going to be an extremely. It will be eye attracting because of the gold color, but it's not going to be an extremely bright sign. Nothing
I
like
have a
this.
problem.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to voice a similar concern of the location, the height of it off the ground. Maybe not necessarily for the impact that it might have on that unit, but just from a visual impact related to the signage band that basically follows down Lorraine. I would prefer that it would be within that signage band. I understand the comment about the camera, but can that sign be located maybe more central on the entrance door so that it's further away from the camera? I think it feels out of place in relation to all of the other signage banding. And you know, if there were additional signage that were going to be added to this building or adjacent buildings, understanding how all that plays together is something that I think is important to look at.
Or maybe the camera could go up and then the sign could come down.
That would actually impact the camera more. Could you go to some of the other views that show it at more of a like how the traffic would see it? No, not that one. Like that. So in between, we did look at the column in between. It's the first column to the east, and we've got building lighting there. You're saying put it up high at, but in that column?
No, I'm saying within the sort of the two horizontal bands that are above right where the cursor is, within that band, somewhere along within that band.
You know, at that point, it might actually interfere with the donut sign. I think that was part of it as well. There's a view that shows it. It's more showing the donut sign, and I'm wondering if that's no. Maybe the first. Go back one more. Yeah, and so if we drop it down and place it directly behind the donut sign, then it starts to impact the donut sign, because now you've got the different lightings right on top of each other. That would be my response on that. I think that one might be troublesome if we stuck it immediately behind the donut sign. Now, there are signs at that level that are blade signs up and down Lorraine. I mean, there are many signs that go from basically the top of the first floor to the top of the second floor along Lorraine. I didn't know that the location would be such an issue, so I didn't get any example photos, but I know of quite a few. Whether or not they're with apartment buildings up above, I'm not sure. I mean, I didn't, look at it that closely.
Yeah, I think that the read of this sign and the fact that it isn't sort of a full height, very tall blade sign, which would be a completely different consideration, I think. I think it feels out of place not being located within that signage band. Maybe there's a way that the donuts sign could be shifted left or right, so it's maybe justified to the right hand side or the left hand side of the canopy, or do you or is an alternate, do you put the donut sign on the east-west, or sorry, the north-south face of the canopy, and then you have the instead of having to act as that signage component from the driving directions, then you have a flat sign within the signage band that notes the Goldies.
Well, we actually did look at a flat sign in the but if you see there's only about, a blade sign would fit fine because it has a minimal footprint on the wall with regards to attachment. We couldn't even fit those letters within that brick area between the soldier courses above the canopy on the wall. I believe that's only like 11 and some fraction amount of brick. It's kind of limited. That's why we were saying that it's kind of challenging to place signs on this building. We did look at a kind of flat but slightly projected version of that sign, and the problem then is then it starts to get too tall and it starts to go into the false balcony area to avoid the it's a very minimally sized project with regards to size. One other key thing is that the owner of the building, with the original renderings and everything, I don't know if any of you recall them, the 41 West and Donuts, and they actually showed a sign in the middle canopy as well. Were part of that original design that he thought was pretty important. So the placement on the canopies, we actually spent 3 weeks on that, looking at different color schemes. They originally wanted all black letters, which really does not work. These will have a black face and a white return, and a gold face and a gold return. We could ask about possibly still bringing it back down right next to the camera. I just don't know. I don't know how that impacts the camera. I'm not a camera
Mhm.
the security guy, so I'm not sure how that would impact that camera.
Yeah, I would ask if you could study that. You know, either the you know the sign happening here, or maybe the sign happens, you know, here, so that it's not in direct conflict with either the uplighting or the channelers themselves.
Wait, what's the last two lines you just put there? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, this is the uplighting on the
Oh,
on the
okay,
building. Sorry.
okay. I was just making sure I was understanding what those two lines.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that.
All right. Yeah, the lighting aspect is it makes that difficult. That's I think after we met at the building with the owner of Goldie's, the owner of the building, and there were a couple other people from the building there as well, from the management group, and looked at this. We looked at several different locations in place, then looked at them again on plans. And this is where everyone felt it was the best. I mean, we can go back and ask them about, is there any issues with the sign itself?
I don't, from my perspective, I think the sign's attractive. I don't see there being any issues with it.
I agree. I think all the signs seem appropriately sized, and it's just that the placement of that blade sign would, like, you'd explore it to be a little lower.
All
I
right.
would agree. Are the signs on the awnings, are those lit at all, or are those?
Yeah,
just-
yeah, the returns are lit. The faces are opaque.
Okay.
Would we need to be dead center on the brick?
That would be, I think, preferred.
Right, right. I understand that, but noting the camera location again, I know that's, we did talk about the camera, so that really can't be moved much, just because of with the with the canopies and things. I don't know if it could be shifted so that maybe the plate was just below the stone band. Or even offset kind of how the camera is, its attachment is, where it's offset up to the bottom of the soldier course. That might provide enough space beneath.
Yeah, I'll let my colleagues speak to that, but I would be more okay with that than its current location, sort of above that band.
I had a similar thought.
Okay, so slide it down and this is so. Is the landmarks representative in the meeting?
I believe Carl.
Yes, I am.
Hi, does this need to go through the actual landmarks commission meeting?
It may, we are still evaluating whether or not it would need variances or not.
Okay. And when is that next meeting?
Not discuss that right now because our agendas are quite full for a while. Let's concentrate on this committee for now. We can talk later.
Okay. Well, the reason I was asking is rather than if it's possible that I can go back and discuss that with them if the location is moved down, if that was if that's obviously acceptable to this board here, if we can proceed on to landmarks if we're able to do that, and if not, I would contact the Ohio City offices and we'd have the owner back to explain why that wasn't what issues were actually encountering with movement of that sign. Would that be acceptable? Or
I would let's hear what the action is here, because if this committee tables this or makes the recommendation to move on, we need to know what their action is first before we can take any other steps.
All right, do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to, well, I guess, Alex, I think the question is, and I'm newer to this committee, so we have two options. One would be to table it, and the other would be to approve it with the condition that the signage be moved down into the signage band, the attachment either centered on the signage band or aligned with the location of the camera attachment.
Both motions would be acceptable. We could do either. If you want, though, the table, you need the permission of the applicant.
And
All right, well,
just a reminder that you are making a recommendation for the approval of a certificate of appropriateness. And then you can state those conditions, and then we can take that to the commission.
okay, so.
Just it's wording, so.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to recommend approval of appropriateness for this sign under the condition that it be shifted down into the signage band, either centered within the signage band vertically, or aligned, or the attachment aligned with the attachment of the camera.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Do we have a second?
Does that work?
I can second that.
Okay, Ben, will you call the roll?
Ms. Lamb,
Yes,
Mr. Lozer,
Yes.
and Mr. Frondor.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, if there is any issue, we'll contact Ohio City offices and I guess come back to another meeting, but I think we can work with that.
Well, they've already given you the recommendation of approval, so it's now into landmark. So we'll be in contact with you from our office.
Okay, all right, sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Ben, can you call the next agenda item?
Okay, so we're gonna go back to our first item, which would be the Mabel Court Townhomes porches. Ms. Marinucci is here, I believe now.
Okay.
Give me 1 second to pull up drawings. And feel free to be.
I think you're muted, Mia.
No, we cannot hear you. We cannot.
Are you double muted?
Secret muted.
All right, while she does this, because we have a very full agenda and a tight time frame, Ben, can you call the next agenda item? And we'll come back once the audio is fixed.
Yeah, and Nia, I might try logging off and logging back on. I don't know if she might have just done that. Yep, let's see. So our third agenda item would be a conceptual review of 2905 J Avenue. Do we have somebody representing that project here? I think Mr. Root is here.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect.
Let me pull your drawings up.
All righty. Morning, everybody, or actually afternoon. Okay, so this is a conceptual design for a new residence to go in at 2905 J Avenue. Essentially, it's a single property already has an existing home. And it is between J Avenue and Waco Court, as you can see here. Next slide. These are just some pictures of existing conditions within the neighborhood surrounding. Just giving you a flavor for the character of the homes surrounding. You can see there's a home across the street that has a 3-story turret, which the owners really liked. And then you can also see the material palettes of the different homes surrounding. So this is our site plan, and there's a couple things that Jessica brought up that in terms of clarification, what's going on. There's an existing garage back here that will be replaced. That will be replaced with a 2-story garage with an in-law suite above it. And the garage will actually open onto Waco Court at the rear of the property. And you can see our various setbacks between the existing residence and the new 3-story residence. It's technically a 2-story residence, but the turret at the corner would be 3 stories. And then you see here, there would be a drive pad to the side and then the existing garage that would be replaced. One of the other considerations that Jessica had brought up that we will need to clarify in terms of site plan is there is a rather large tree in between the properties over here. And Block Club, one of their first questions was, is that tree going away? And we said, yes, that tree is being removed. Apparently it's in poor condition. It's rather large, and Block Club was actually amenable to having it removed. They were actually thankful that it was going away. So you can see where the residence is here. We are keeping the front porch in line with the front porch of the existing residence neighboring. And then we have the setbacks set up accordingly. Next slide. These are the initial conceptual floor plans that were developed previously for this. Next slide. This is our material palette before we get to the elevations. We have the primary siding being indigo blue, accent siding, Nantucket gray, white trim gutters and soffits, and then we also have brick on the first floor that would be a cavalry gray brick, and then black shingles. Next slide.
What's the materiality though? I know the color. What's the materiality for the siding?
Oh, the materiality is actually it's a composite siding, and I can send what that actually is. We actually have a manufacturer picked out for that.
Is it akin to a Hardy?
Yes.
Do you remember the name of the manufacturer off the top of your head right now?
I do not. If you can zoom in up top.
Yeah,
Since
This is conceptual. You can provide that information.
yeah, I don't know that we can zoom in on that
Yeah.
closely enough in a full screen.
Yeah, I have it. I need to go back into emails to find it, but yes. Yeah.
It looks like Royal Building Products.
Yes, correct. And then, of course, the black asphalt shingles. Next slide.
The siding, it looks like it shows, sorry, this is Ben Trimble from High Side Incorporated. It looks like the siding shown has a wood grain.
It does, yes.
Is that available in a smooth finish?
I would have to check on that. We could certainly do a smooth versus a wood finish.
Yeah, that'll be one of the recommendations.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so you can see here from the front elevation, if you look at the lower left, we have the essentially 3-story turret that occurs. And then we have the entryway on the front that actually returns on the right elevation, has the brick accent to it. And then we have the two different types of siding that are going on here. We have the main field siding, and then we have essentially a shake style of siding in Nantucket gray. And then we have the white trim that is happening.
Are you through, Chris?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry, we also have the 2-story garage. We essentially have the floor plans for that. One of the things you will notice that we can update if you go to the next slide, in terms of what that garage will look like, those materials will match the colors of the main house. And again, the garage is intended to open back onto Waco Court.
Ben, could you scroll back up to the elevations of the house?
yes, I can.
So, Chris, I think there's, it's very evident where you're pulling your inspiration from, very evident in the neighborhood. There are a couple of tweaks, though, that I would recommend. The first,
Okay.
with materiality.
Okay.
The brick part there underneath the front porch or on the front porch, I think you should just stick with the same materiality throughout. It would be very
Okay.
uncommon to see that brick element adjoining more a lap board siding.
Okay.
You're going for, it looks like sort of a Queen Anne-ish approach with the scalloped siding there. And then the other concern is probably more substantial, is I think the turret is a bit too overriding over the overall design. And the 3-story nature of it, it's dominating the whole house, where a turret of a house of this style would typically accent, like the one in the image you showed, catty corner across the street. And so I think the turret needs to be scaled down dramatically on this project, and maybe even not a full 3 stories.
Okay.
Those are my overall concerns. We haven't gotten into window types and that sort of thing yet, but we can. But those are, I'll stop there because those are the two main overriding concerns there.
Okay.
So Ben, Chris, or sorry, Chris, Margaret, or Antonia.
I would also, I agree with Alex on the material, the brick material. I think that it seems a little out of place, and I think utilizing the same lap siding throughout is more in fitting with the historic nature of the neighborhood. I share Alex's concern about the overall scale of the turret, though maybe not as forcefully as Alex. I think there's precedent for it. I think if it was scaled back slightly to help with the overall balance of the structure, that would help. Or providing maybe a more prominent balancing feature on the right-hand side, so it feels a little bit more balanced than sort of very heavy with the turret on the opposite side. I think that the color palette is fitting within the neighborhood. I think the scalloped material is fitting. I think if there was anything else that, and I think that's, I think those are my initial comments for now.
Okay.
Oh, and then just making sure that the siding material is cement composite versus other potential composite materials. That's it for now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Ah, great. Let's do a little reboot. I would echo, I do feel pretty strongly that the turret is quite out of scale and disproportionate to the massing as a whole. I think that it would benefit greatly from having a better balance among just as the facade, the front facade as a whole, or the massing of the house as a whole. Some of the finer kind of points that I would like to see also addressed is the roof lines. We zoom in on that front facade or that rear facade. We have I think like a pretty typical triangular gable, but yet the rear roof line is a different, shallower pitch, the rear massing of the house. I think that there needs to be some rectifying of those pitches in accordance, like in conjunction with looking at how the turret massing works. I also worry, functionally speaking, that you're creating a junction with that turret and these 3 different roof lines that's on the north face of this house. It's going to just be a really difficult spot to dry out and not have moisture and ice. I think that deserves to be re-examined from a functional standpoint in the implementation of the house. I think that the windows on the side facades, the small kind of clear story style windows need to have some breathing room away from that trim. They're very, very tight to the corner boards. And that's looking, I also think in terms of the turret and kind of why it feels, part of the reason it feels very overwhelming to me is that the white corner boards are just in the sticking is like maybe too contrasted. I think that revisiting, I'm not opposed to the color palette as a whole, but I think that it's creating like just a lot of like gridding. And it's really, that's part of the overwhelming feeling for me. Last thing is I noticed that there is a bedroom on the front of the foundation and that there would be a window well on the front facade. And I would really recommend not having a window well on the front facade, the primary facade of the structure. If that could be on the side, that would be much preferable. And also just like not as functional.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think my colleagues covered most things. I was gonna just share my appreciation for the garage opening onto the court and appears to be appropriately sized. Going back to what Nia was just saying, I had the same reaction to the contrast, especially with the black roof, the white sticking, and I just think maybe just tweaking that white to be an off-white, just
Okay.
softening it a little bit would kind of resolve some of that sharp contrast, and then you could keep the black roof, I think.
Got it. Okay.
Just a suggestion. Otherwise, I don't have anything else to add.
Chris, my final comment there is on the front, the windows on the porch level and then above, I think play around with having them separated so they're not, so it matches the fenestration of the other buildings of that, on that street. I don't think having them together is like a mid-century bay window type, but have them separated so they're individual windows would improve it as well.
Got
If
it.
there's
Okay.
going to be any detail to the trim, or if it's going to be very plain, I think we'd like to see that as well. And that would include that separation that Alex is speaking to.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Since this is just conceptual review, any other comments or questions from the applicant? None? All right, well then, Chris, thank you for presenting today.
Okay, thank you.
Ben, call the next item.
See, so I believe we'll go back to our first item, which was the Maple Court Townhome porches. I'll pull that up.
Okay, you guys can hear me still? Okay, great. Okay, so I'm back representing this project, the Maple Court row homes, porch reconstruction. This is a photo of the existing conditions. The existing porches were, I think, era from late 60s, early 70s, from what we can tell, and the existing fencing. They're in a state of deterioration. In the current HOA, there are 5 units, are seeking to rebuild the porches, both to address this deterioration, but also to find something that's a bit more aesthetically appropriate for the age of the home. Next slide. Here's a closer look at those existing conditions. As you can see, it's pretty in line with what, of that era, of the 70s era. Next slide. Historically, they show up on the Simbra map as the earliest one they show up on is 1896. And you can see that there were front stoops at the very least in this mapping. You can see the evolution of the property on that 1912-13 map. And then there is a 1957 photo of the house that you see on the corner that you can see a sliver of those porches at the rear of. So what we can see here is front facing stairs, a shed roof line, and then handrails, spandrels, and brackets. Next slide. One of the main inspiration images when this project was first brought to me, which is a couple years ago now, was the Astor Place in Harlem. And that's what we're trying to kind of evoke moving into the proposed plans. Next slide. So the proposed typical floor plan is going to be a reconfiguration. So going from that side entry approach into a front entry approach from the existing sidewalk. We also want to create a hinged access panel in the kind of dead space between existing foundation and the porch steps for their trash cans to occupy. And the other piece of the plan is proposing a new aluminum fencing to enclose each little kind of courtyard yard situation. Next slide, please. So this is looking at typical front elevation and a typical side elevation, illustrating these ideas. We're proposing a turned column with a kind of half height post with a kind of traditional ball finial on top. And we're going to propose a handrail that would encase the perimeter of the porches, but also run down the center of each porch, the ones that are coupled, the 2 that are coupled, to provide separation between the units. And then you can also see how that hinged access panel, I'm proposing just a beadboard solid enclosure beneath those porches, and then creating that hinged opening between the beadboard and a little bit of that skirting. And then I believe it's a 32-inch rail height. We'd like to propose the historic rail height. And then in the roof portion of it, just a dimensional asphalt shingle on that shed. And then on the side, also adding in that beadboard element, very similar to what's there, but in a bit of a different proportion because the proposed porches are deeper than the existing structure. Next slide. There is also interest among the HOA to reintroduce that spandrel at the top. It's just a function of cost and budget. So they would like to present both options in hopes of having support for either route and let budget determine if they are able to put the spandrel piece in. But this, yep, thank you, Ben. The design is substantially similar for all the other ones. It's exactly the same, just introducing that spandrel bar and spandrel little turn details. Next slide. From a color standpoint, we're proposing a pewter gray dimensional shingle. We would love to propose a Roycroft bronze green look, kind of a monochromatic look for the wood porch elements. All of the, I forgot to say this, all of the porch elements will be made of wood, including the tongue and groove decking. And again, going back to that kind of that Astor Place aesthetic and kind of keeping things, it's a little bit of a, feels a little bit of a decorative porch for a very kind of plain austere working row home. And we feel like the monochromatic look would kind of keep things looking minimal and not too overly painted lady. Then the aluminum fence and gate, which are 4 feet high, match the existing style that encloses their parking lot. That is just to the west of the block of brick row homes. So just continuation to have this appear to be a unified block of ownership. I think that's it.
I think this is a great proposal. I'm fine with both Plan A or Plan B. I think though, if I had to choose, Plan A is probably more preferable because it seems less fussy. This is a very straightforward row home. The inspiration that you showed from Astor Place in Harlem has more detailing in the lentils and the brickwork that's absent here. And so I think you would both get a cost savings and not have to mess with the additional fussiness that may not be necessary. But the materialities, the colors, the fences, everything else, good.
I agree with Alex. I think I really appreciate going back to something that was sort of originally there, going back to the historic configuration, the spindles and all of that. I like the color scheme, but looking at Astor Place, I can't tell if the underside of the porch, the ceiling of the porch is a different color. So I might, as well as the decking of the porch itself. So that might be something to maybe investigate a little bit further. You know, is fully monochromatic, you know, the look that that is being looked at, or does it make sense to maybe change up some of the horizontal surfaces? I would say my preference would be the option B, which has the spandrel pieces. One, because if you look back at the historic photo from the 50s, it had that banding at the top as well. And I feel like without them, it feels a little bit bare. It feels like there is something maybe missing there. So my preference would be with option B. I feel like it feels like a much more cohesive design. That's part of it, but I think I'm really happy to see that that this is being proposed, because maybe those townhomes are a real gem in the neighborhood. I've always appreciated them, but having the reconstructed porches, I think will really make them much nicer.
Ben, can you go back to the existing condition photos, the ones that are up closer? Yeah, right here. Chris, I apologize because it's a little bit harsh from the winter sun and these lights, but the we're gonna leave similar to how this roof structure is, just
Okay, gotcha.
it's enclosed on the
You'll see
side.
the structure.
You'll see the rafters
Got it.
underneath, and the reason for that is that there are transoms and sandstone lintels above each of
Gotcha.
the floors. So we're gonna be
Gotcha.
okay. But noted on the decking, I think that's a really good suggestion to alter the color there.
Margaret?
I don't have anything to add. I think I especially appreciate the solid color choice. That's very appropriate for the time period. And I think it's going to make a big difference, all of these changes.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, Ben, call the roll.
Ms. Lamb,
Yes,
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Frondor,
Yes,
and motion passes.
Thank you, guys.
thanks. Ben, call the next agenda item.
Absolutely. We have the Clinton Townhomes concept review for new townhome construction at 4303 Clinton Avenue.
Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I'm Ryan Grass with Grassroots Architecture. I'm here with Andrew from Gold Key Builders.
Hello. Hello.
Thinking back, we came here, we met with you a few weeks, 4 weeks ago, maybe. And we've made some changes since then. We've had some discussions with planning and landmarks and some internal discussions relative to where we think this project should go. We've updated the site plan. Primarily what we've done is updated the site plan relative to the orientation of the townhomes and how they're positioned on the site, how people access those townhouses with their vehicle and as pedestrians, how visitors may enter from Clinton Avenue, so that the orientation and siting of the townhouses have been changed a bit. And the front 3 single-family homes, as you recall, there were 3 facing Clinton Avenue with yards and garages. We've kind of updated the design of those. We're still kind of working through that. I think it'll make some additional changes as we move forward, and presumably when we come back here to discuss further the design, we'll have worked out some of the details and materialities and stuff for that. But today I really would like to focus on the site plan. And well, of course, anything you guys want to talk about, primarily update you with what has changed from the last time we tabled the project. So let me start here. We've got the overall site aerial and some imagery from the just the front of the site, the back of the site, and just to get you oriented. Next, please. We have a page, 2 pages here. This first one are just a smattering of the homes that are on Clinton Avenue, near and around the site. Some are just a few doors down, some are across the street. But just to give you that sense of the variety, if you will, of aesthetic that's on Clinton, and part of what I think makes the neighborhood attractive and desirable. This page is Vine Court, the back of the property, if you will. Again, as a reference, the large picture in the upper right corner is the back of the Franklin Mansion and its carriage house as you look east. And in the upper left corner is the adjacent property to the east. Primarily, Vine Court is vehicular access, and there's a couple smatterings of homes that are facing Vine Court. But if without doing the math, I'm sure it's probably 85 to 90% vehicular access, and then just a little bit of townhouses and smaller homes that access from Vine Court. So next, please. I think we're up to, this isn't critical. This was really just how we are proposing to, in the end, divide the property. On the left is the current configuration of the properties into, and on the right, we'll have it broken up into 7 parcels with some shared easements for vehicular access and pedestrian access. And it'll show itself much more clearly in the next slide, I think, when we have the site plan. There we are. So to the north of the property, Clinton Avenue, to the south of the drawing and property is Vine Street. If I can work my way from the north down, we have the existing sidewalk, and there currently is a couple, I think at least one, maybe two curb cuts on Clinton Avenue. We're going to get rid of those and put in some sidewalks in their place. So when parking in the street, you can access the sidewalk confidently and easily. We have 3 single-family homes, each with front porches and masses of those buildings that align with the adjacent properties, each with individual sidewalks. And you'll also see that there is kind of a 4th sidewalk, a third of the way from the west edge of the property, that goes between the 2 single-family homes, goes back to what we're calling the auto court, to the townhouses. So the size and positioning and plans of the the single-family homes, their yards and their garages are essentially unchanged. We've shifted them a few feet here and there, but conceptually they're not very different. But we did in the townhouses previously, that we've investigated a couple where the townhouse faced north and the garage doors were on Vine Street. We flipped them after some investigation and put the entrances on Vine with an auto court that was all vehicular and garage entrances. So now what we've proposed is the concept of the vehicular entrance off of Vine will be, if you will, kind of a tiny little street in its own. We've faced the townhouses, they face each other on that drive. The 2 townhomes to the south that are on Vine Street, you enter the garage from Vine Street directly. The 2 townhouses that face each other that are just to the north of the first ones at the bottom of the page, you would come up to auto court if driving, and then take a right or a left, and you'll access your garage doors from the auto court themselves. And the single family home garages are off the auto court. But more importantly, the 2 townhouses face each other. There's an opportunity for some interesting paving distinctions in that area, a little bit of landscaping, and you'll see in some imagery later that we've started to suggest what I think is a more comfortable way for people to see and experience that Vine Court entrance to the auto court that wasn't previously there, and we're pretty happy with that. I understand the townhouses positioned in the back and including this property or project at all has gotten a little pushback. We feel fairly strong that it is to some degree appropriate and successful to include them in the project. So our goal is to make their presence not impactful on Clinton, where we think is the charm of this street, but also at the same time a more pleasant experience when entering them. So if you could move forward a little on the drawings or the slides, we can skip through the plans. They're not critical. The sizes and square footage of them haven't really changed. So here you can see we've started to suggest the 3 townhouses on the front, and you can start to see, especially in the upper left corner, that kind of vehicular pedestrian mini street, if you will, that is now present between the 2 facing townhouses off of Vine Street. Personally, I think it's pretty successful. I kind of like the way I think that would be felt and experienced from people that are walking and driving to their places or visiting people that are in those townhouses. But again, you can start to see where we've suggested landscaping on Clinton Avenue, the drive or the sidewalk that goes from the front to the back, from Clinton Avenue to the back townhouses. You can see in the far right corner where we've kind of accented that with, some landscaping there, and hopefully that'll work out. There may be a couple more slides of the 3 single family homes in the context of the neighborhood. Oh, and in the bottom left corner, you'll see that. So the bottom left corner image is if you're standing on the sidewalk looking down that pedestrian path that will get you to the townhomes between the 2 single family homes on the right. So, we've tried to get some pieces and parts, contextual elements from around the neighborhood and adjacent properties and apply those to our single family homes, and but still give them their own character. And I think there's one more that's image in the next slide that shows it more straightforward. And the bottom right imagery is let's call it a site section or site elevation. So you can start to see the relationship of cars and pedestrians on Clinton Avenue, which is to the right of that drawing, and the townhouses on the far left of that drawing. The site slopes up a few feet, upwards of 3, 4, almost 4.5 feet toward the back on between Clinton and Vine, Vine being the higher of the two. So we just wanted to start to illustrate and understand for ourselves, if you're standing on Clinton, can you see the townhouses? Is their presence impactful in the experience that I think people are traditionally looking for as they walk down Clinton Avenue and walk their dogs and visit with friends? So we're happy that you can really only see the townhouses through the slivers and openings between the two single-family homes. So that's what we have to share today. Love to hear your thoughts on all of it, really, but I'm most importantly interested in your thoughts on the townhouses in our new little street. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. I think focusing on the site plan first is a smart idea, and I think it's probably the most important aspect of this project. Thank you, Ben. I still maintain my position from our last meeting when I think it's best to have the garages put back and have carriage houses above them as opposed to a series of 4 townhomes. Not just because that's in keeping with the how the alley has always been used and how those lots have always been used. I don't have a problem, and I think it's quite appropriate actually that you've taken those 2 parcels and divided them into 3 single-family homes. Lots that are 35, I think you have 38 and 35 feet wide respectively. That's very common. That'd be very standard. I don't have any issue with that at all. That's very much in keeping with the march of the street. I just think that there's too much happening on this plot here, and that it would be better to push those garages back all the way to the alley and not have garages in the middle of the plot there. I think that's creating that auto court, I think is it's what I'm reacting most negatively to, I suppose.
I understand.
But the 3 single-family homes on front on Clinton, we could talk about the design on that later, but I think you're in the right direction on that. I think it would make more sense to push the garages back, have carriage houses to the extent you want rental above that. And then, 2, you had on your last slide there, the elevation where the rear structure is taller, in an absolute sense, taller than the front structure. And I know it's your position that you may not see much of that from Clinton, but I still think that that's something we want to shy away from, because that would not have been historically appropriate to have the carriage house taller than the front house. Those are my comments on the site plan. I'll let my colleagues speak.
Yeah, I'm a little torn about this site plan as well. I agree with Alex that I think the 3 single-family homes on Clinton, especially seeing the renderings, I think that helps tremendously in context to understand the rhythm that it provides along Clinton Avenue. I see Alex's point and appreciate Alex's point about the carriage house concept, where that would have been historically the way that Vine Court would have presented itself. I'm torn because this site plan doesn't turn me off completely. I think if you're trying to get the 7 units on there, I don't know that you're able to get 7 sets of garages for both the single family homes and then essentially sort of carriage house units above. The auto court in concept doesn't bother me. I appreciate the change in the paving, though I would question, if you're changing the paving, I would suggest maybe having it be symmetrical, so you don't have sort of the bump out to the west, where you would sort of have that mirrored, so you have the same sort of feel as you're approaching that outer court and driving through that outer court. One thing to also consider, if this is the site plan that ultimately gets recommended, looking at the two facing townhome units, and the placement along those two facades along the auto court. My concern there is, I mean, you're roughly 24 feet apart, but from a privacy standpoint, looking directly from your set of windows across into the next unit doesn't really provide a whole lot of privacy. And I think that there's some other developments that have happened throughout the neighborhood that you don't realize it until you're visiting friends and you look directly across and you see into someone else's unit. So that would be something to consider. I do want to touch a little bit on the single family homes, and while I appreciate the slight modifications that were made from home to home, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that the character of Clinton Avenue is that variety. And to me, the three homes seem, like they're sisters, not identical twins, but close to being identical twins. And having more variety in roof line and in scale and in maybe materiality might be helpful as you continue to develop the designs of those units. But again, going back to the overall site plan, I am torn between the concept of the auto court and the rear units, as well as the concept that Alex had brought up about the carriage houses, because that is essentially not the carriage house portion itself, but the adjacent property to the east, where you have all of the garages sort of along Vine, allowing for that to be that sort of site plan. I'll let my other colleagues weigh in.
I can go next. Ben, can you go back to the site plan, please? Thanks. I think I'm with Chris in that I feel conflicted. I do think this is an improvement of the site plan. I will say that for sure. I do feel conflicted a bit on just, the overall appropriateness of putting so many units onto this site. But I guess a specific question is, have you guys considered a U-shaped configuration for this property?
I'd like to think that we've investigated
I
upwards
think-
of 12 or 15 layouts, but
So I figured.
if you could be more specific, you mean U-shaped series of homes or single family homes?
I mean, I'm thinking if you're trying to, I know you're trying to hit a certain number of units, right? For sale units, these are fee simple townhomes, essentially. If you want to hit 7, have you considered a U-shaped configuration that would potentially give frontage to all 7 units with an interior courtyard? Like I'm envisioning, and this is a break. I'm recognizing that you guys, the single family approach on Clinton is trying to hit a certain, you're trying to play with the language of the street. There, I think, is a scenario where a U-shaped configuration could work in the urban context. You might not be able to point to, there is Clinton West, which is an apartment building that's U-shaped down the block. So it's not like you're introducing a completely foreign element. And I'm not saying you have to redo this. I'm just thinking from the space on the table that there may be something to that idea in terms of number of units that would all allow frontage. if you are at all interested in that, just putting it there. You don't need to respond right now, but just note it.
Fair.
The other thought is if you are wanting to go with this, looking at this configuration right in front of me. Again, can appreciate and understand what you're doing with the single families on Clinton. Is there an exploration? Is there a way to have townhomes 1, 2, 3, and 4 have front doors that do face Clinton? Looking, if you go, Ben, if you can go down to the, which one is that? The one where we can see. Yes, this one, please, would be great. Those flat facades with the garage doors on the townhomes facing the backside, like facing the auto court. And I know we're obviously seeing like a literal bird's eye angle that we wouldn't see in real life. But is there a way so that when you hit those slivers, you're seeing a front door? Like, can those townhomes jog or offset a little bit so you're getting a front door facing Clinton and then a front door facing Clinton further recessed? Not really modifying really much else of what you've just almost like turning, they're facing each other. And this might even help what Chris said, that you're facing each other and then you're 20 feet away looking directly into your neighbor's same window, mirrored window. Is there a way that can you jog them and then have them almost like not in plan, but like visually facade wise reorient the fronts back towards Clinton so that everything is coming off of, and then maybe the single family shift a foot or two here and there so that you're getting it on both sides. I'm wanting this to work for you, and I'm trying to find ways to improve it that are gonna like not cause you to
I appreciate your efforts. And I do really, and I am 100% on board with this concept of because of course, while we wait for this meeting to happen, Andrew and I are still kind of working through things on the single family homes in town, just tweaking stuff to make sure that we've at least been thoughtful about all of the elements on the project, even if sometimes we're not 100% on board with the concept of all the townhouses. But to your point, yes, we've discussed, and Andrew and I are both committed to spacing the single family homes so the primary sidewalk maybe has a little extra space, and that townhouse you see between those two actually has some sort of architectural element. And again, I appreciate your efforts in trying to solve it, and I haven't either. I don't know what that answer is. Can we turn the doors there, or is it a decorative bay? Does there a gable that faces that way? So as that is revealed from Clinton Avenue, and it reveals itself as an entrance for a pedestrian, then is there something at the end of that trip that is visually impactful? So I'm 100% on the same page with you on that. I'm really kind of, and forgive me if I feel like I'm petting my own child here, but I'm really kind of like the two townhouses that face each other. I've done hundreds of townhouses, and this is reasonably new to me. I don't know that I've done this before, where the townhouses are in a position where they are, but we've still tried to create what I think is more of a less of an auto court and a driveway experience, and something that I think is a little more elevated, what is traditionally seen as rear townhouses on a property. And I do want to, while I have everyone's attention, I did want to thank Chris. Probably the best compliment I've heard in weeks, when you suggested that the project didn't turn you off completely. I appreciate that. I'm kind of clinging.
I didn't realize I said that. I'm sorry.
I wrote it down. I swear to God, I did.
One phrase I find myself using often is "I'm not offended," which
I'm a fan of that one. That doesn't offend me.
It didn't offend us, but I could go back and forth on if them facing each other is or isn't. This is an urban neighborhood. How many, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't want to be as close to your neighbors and don't live here, is pretty much what I kind of think. And I do think that there could be a quality, like you're getting into it with that upper left rendering, that's getting closer to what this feeling could be in terms of how these units interact. I do also think, I can't remember if it's the landmarks requirements or if it's the city that does want to see some distinguishing features between townhomes. Like, we should know where one's stops. And oftentimes jogging them a little bit and playing and pushing and pulling a little bit of how they sit on the site is a really good method. Like right now I'm looking at it too, and it's like they're just very like the shallow kind of uniform roof line is flat, and it's not
Yeah.
giving us, and then these two facades that we are seeing, even if we're prioritizing the interior experience, which I do appreciate, and like those two facades are really flat too, and we're not really
Yeah.
getting much
I
distinction.
won't defend, I'm not going to sit here and defend the design of those two north facing townhouses. And that's why I don't want to ignore comments or what I've shown you as design of the project, but just please understand that we've focused a great deal on working on the site and that experience, and knowing that we're going to come back to you anyway, regardless of what happens. We'll have some time to reflect on your comments and our internal voices and start to refine all of this. But we are hopeful that this discussion at least offers us some direction on where we should be focused next. Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead, Margaret.
My first reaction when looking at it was, oh, good, those townhomes don't face the alley, the court anymore. And initially I said, this is an improvement. But then I tend to respond a lot like Alex, like, well, historically there'd be the carriage house and the townhome is taller. But sitting here and listening to what Nia was just saying, there is the precedent in the area for the two houses on one lot. We see that, and it's not always that the house that is against the primary street is the tallest, but those houses, whenever we see the two houses in the same lot, almost always both front the primary street. And so I wonder if playing a little bit with the position of those to differentiate them and getting those doors to face the front would that would speak historically to things that have happened. And then I think I could understand or feel better about the difference in the height with the rear being taller, because it would be similar to things that occur in the neighborhood.
That's a very interesting idea, Margaret.
And if I could piggyback a little, I'm sorry, Alex, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Go. No, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna suggest that one of the things we're currently talking about, and it may seem nuances, but it addresses this height issue, is the profile and slope of the gables on the single family homes. And we kind of took those from the property that is directly to the right. I think they're probably at 812 or 1012, probably 1012 currently. I am 100%. I really think they need to be steeper. I think the house on the right is it's a beautiful home, and that's reasonable slope for that roof. The one on the property to the left has much steeper. They're probably 13 or 1412. I would like to take all of our roofs on the front, make them 1212. I think the proportions of the gables and roofs on the front would be a little more aesthetically pleasing. And also, I think have without getting too high in the neighborhood, because they're much shorter than the building on the left, start to address the height differentiation between the front and back. But it does sound like, I appreciate your comments, Margaret, and that I feel like there's two people now that I haven't quite offended with our design.
I'd like to say, I think
Go ahead,
Margaret's idea of maybe instead of townhouses, actual individual houses is an idea that intrigued me, and I had not considered that before. So I don't know if that's a possibility. But as I work through that, I think the problem becomes less one of design and more of legal and code, which is how do you get someone else's garage underneath someone else's house or connected to it? There might be a solution there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think Margaret hit on an option that I would find more palatable.
Okay.
Ryan, I just dropped into our the chat a screenshot of exactly the condition Margaret is describing. I'm biased. I'm very fond. I used to own the properties in the photo, but you can see there's two houses very close together. They're 6 feet apart. Margaret knows these ones too. And because we worked together on it from the Restoration Society, and you can see the back house front door aligns right on that walkway. And that condition is definitely contextual. We can,
Let me see if I can.
hopefully that
Oh,
opens. Yeah,
there it is.
yeah, I'm biased. They were mine, so I'm very fond of them. But that's what she's talking
I
about.
see. So that's so we're just, the two on the left are
Two
very
single
close together.
families.
And in the
Yep.
back is another single family on the property.
There's a double. It's a double in real life, but I mean, functionally it could be, of course, a single family. But yeah, that's how
And
that's
logistically, how do the cars work?
there. Well, these ones are predate car. The blue house to the
Understand,
right.
they look that, but I didn't
sliver
know
of
they were been added.
has a garage facing the alley. And then there's like a little interior garden courtyard. If you're at all interested, I can send you a lot more photos of, we owned all three, so we.
Well, what road is it on?
A lot of
I'll just-
documentation on this one, but,
What
yeah,
street
so
is
all-
that on?
it's on Whitman
Okay,
in the, 40s block.
got it.
Cars tend to ruin everything, don't they?
I know.
Yeah, Ryan, not always, not in every case, but in the majority of the cases, I've been told the front and back house was one family owned the whole thing, for example, and they put the parents in the back or vice versa, whatever it
Right.
was. That's how those came to be.
Understand, okay.
My other comment I just wanted to add is you're working through some of the details on those front properties would be to lose the grid in the window. I think
Yeah.
it just
Fair.
adds stuff that doesn't need to be there. And I also like the direction that you're thinking with increasing the pitch. I think that makes
Yeah.
more sense.
I would suggest it's less than charming to have all the windows on 3 houses match exactly.
Mhm.
With,
And I like that you put the porch on 2 of them, maybe even
Yes.
the porch on a 3rd. And then the dormers, though, the ones where you introduce a standing seam metal roof to the dormers, I don't think, I mean, these are the sorts of details we can work out later, but I don't think that's quite right. I'd prefer to see just a regular, especially if you're going to increase the pitch of the roof, just go ahead and go.
Shingle it.
okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I would still like to see like even further differentiation between each of the 3 houses as well. Even more recently, you know, the block further west, there was a series of 3 new homes that were constructed, but each one has a very distinct feel to it. So just thinking about just again like the variety that you see on the street, to me, you know, while these 3 are different, I feel like they need to be there needs to be much more difference between each of the 3, so that they each feel like they could have been constructed at different times by, you know, different individuals.
Fair.
And I would shallow the pitch of the porch roofs.
Yeah, that,
You're just looking at an awful lot of metal there,
yeah,
and you don't need to do that. It's not
and
necessary.
that jumps out pretty quickly looking at the house to the right.
And the
the
beautiful thing
entrance
of a
the
metal
apartment.
roof is you can always have it much shallower, because you're not as concerned about water sitting, you know,
Fair.
it flows better.
Fair.
All right, well, this is conceptual, so there are no motions here. Has everyone on the committee said what their feedback is? Okay, and then Ryan, do you have any questions for us?
Currently, no, I don't think I do. If anything pops up, I'll get a hold of somebody.
All right, so you have our feedback.
Thank
We
you very
appreciate
much.
your, you've been good to talk to on this. You're taking the feedback very well, and we appreciate that. So thank you.
Well, because you guys are saying smart stuff. if, or at least some stuff that I, to some degree, agree with. I appreciate that.
I wish
This has been a
everybody
really
thought
good
that-
discussion.
Felt that way about us.
Yeah, so I appreciate your guys' candid comments and your design aesthetic and appreciation for the neighborhood and history. So, all right, it's easy to be nice to you guys. All right, well, thanks very much for the time.
All right, thank you.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ben, I have to step off this call, but we have still 3 people, so we'll still have quorum. I don't know who takes the chair for me. Any volunteers?
Yeah, do we have a volunteer?
I can take it.
Okay, Margaret, thank you very much. Thank you.
So our last item on our agenda will be Lutheran Family Services proposal for 4100 Franklin Avenue. Let me share that. And who's going to be speaking to that?
I will, Mark Olson.
Okay, Mark. Okay, great. You guys want to go ahead and introduce yourself? I'll pull up your proposal, okay?
Okay. Mark Olson, principal with Bialowski Cleveland. I'm here with Maria and Ben. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, good afternoon. Maria Fosha, President and CEO of Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry.
So just want to review, we're looking for approval. We're actually looking at doing some maintenance upgrades to the facility, including some site work. This is just showing existing context and the site location on Franklin Boulevard, just east of West 44th Street. And go to the next slide. Just shots of the existing building. The upper left is facing Franklin Boulevard. The upper right is facing Vine Court. There's a parking lot between Vine Court and this entry. So we have an existing brick office building. If we go to the next slide, just showing context. See existing site plan. I will point out that we have partial fencing going around the property on the east. We do have existing fencing that will be remaining. And then we have damaged fencing on the north and west elevations that we're looking at replacing. And then if we go to the next slide, basically the proposed site plan is maintaining the parking and pavement area, but we will be resurfacing, repaving. You can see at the north side of the building, we are proposing to provide a new vestibule for airlock and weather protection for the building, and then a small concrete patio for the user group, buildings user group. One of the things in conversations with the local block group was being able to provide closure to the parking lot for after hours so that people could use the back parking lot. So we are adding on the northeast corner of the building a new security fence, and then on the west side of the building we're adding a new chain link fence across the parking lot and security fence entry. The other piece that I will point out, the front entrance sidewalk to the front door has an existing brick half wall that is has severe weather damage. We're looking at replacing that masonry half wall with an aluminum wrought iron styled fence in keeping with the neighborhood property aesthetic. So we can go to the next slide. Just some quick renderings. The south elevation or the Franklin Street elevation, the only work that's being done here is the before mentioned wrought iron fence that we're adding to the entry sidewalk. And then we are replacing the curtain wall in the center of the building with insulated low-E glass. Right now it's a single pane glass curtain wall, and it's extremely cold in the winter for the inhabitants. And then on the north elevation, the lower left, we're showing the addition of the vestibule in keeping with the building fenestration. We're adding clear anodized storefront framing. And then we're adding a pitched standing seam metal roof system to kind of bring some identification of entry to the rear of the building, and also bring down the scale for the inhabitants of the user groups. For the most part, those are the only changes that are really taking place that we're looking to talk to you about. If we go to the next slide, we just have material palette. Oh no, the floor plans, just showing the floor plans. So the only real addition we're doing is the vestibule. And then the last slide is just the materiality. So we are looking for approval for the vestibule, the site maintenance and improvements, and then the replacement of the brick half wall with a wrought iron aluminum fence.
Thanks, Mark. I guess I'll get started with some questions. Looking at the, so first of all, thank you for the presentation. It's pretty comprehensive. Understand generally kind of what we're trying to achieve here, and appreciate the use of this building, and understand the want and need of the vestibule at the back. I don't have any issues with, you know, the rear addition or the sort of patio area. I do have a couple questions about the front. Do you know if the existing half wall was that originally part of the building, or was as part of the construction of the building, or was that something, or do we know if that was added at a later time frame?
I do not. There isn't a lot of drawing documentation for this building. We had to do a survey on our own to construct it, but I think if we go back to the existing photos at the front, I believe it. You can see at the upper left, you can see the half wall. I think one of the things that we liked about getting rid of the half wall and introducing the wrought iron fence, besides tying in with the more of the theme and flavor of the adjacent properties on Franklin with the wrought iron fence style, is that it was a screened off area in the front of the building that, you know, provided a catch for leaves and garbage, and also was screening the inside view of the building to the frontscape. So we were trying to eliminate that as well. It kind of made it feel a little claustrophobic.
So the intent is that, you know, a wrought iron sort of black coloration.
Yep.
I guess my question would be, while it's you know, the wrought iron is a look that is pretty consistent throughout the neighborhood on Franklin. The character of this particular building, though, is, you know, aluminum and sort of an anodized finish. So a question that I have is, you know, did you look at, or would you consider it being an anodized finish versus a wrought iron finish? And I would, again, appreciate my colleagues' thoughts on that as well. Looking at the new glass storefront at the front, it's kind of hard to tell, but it looks like in the existing conditions, there's sort of a band of sort of decorative panels that sort of span above the door. It looks like those are being removed as part of this, right?
Well, there kind of is.
Okay.
The reason that those panels are there was that the glass actually got shot out.
Okay.
So they replaced them with the solid panel. So it's not original, it's utilitarian.
Gotcha. Okay. So I appreciate that clarification.
Yep.
So again, it's a little bit hard to tell between the two, but is the intent to so I guess one question is, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like there's 5 series of glazing units as they sort of go up the facade. Is that in keeping with the number that's there today?
No, we
So
did.
I'm looking at the Google
We did
Street View. Okay.
simplify. Yeah, we did simplify the elevation, and then we tied it back to the masonry relief that's shown in the gridding of the building. So we're trying to be more respectful of the horizontal lines that were already being created within the building's
So is
brick facade.
the width between that then is more close to the brick
Yes, correct.
square? Okay,
Mhm.
because I'm looking at street view.
Oh, good. Yeah, they had a lot more divisions that seemed to be unnecessary and not in keeping with the division of the rest of the building. So
I guess go ahead, Margaret.
No, go finish, please, Chris.
I was just going to say, I again, if that's what's there today, and if that was what was originally there, I would like to see it go back to the same rhythm that's there currently, versus making the adjustment to the even though it does pull a couple of the horizontals from the paneling on the rest of the front. Still, there is a misalignment with the top of the door and then the other panel that's a little bit lower. So that, I guess that would be my comment there.
I would have no objection to going back to the original framing division. We were just looking to simplify it.
Does the new system have a similar width
Yes,
in
it does.
the divides?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I definitely agree with Chris on the color of the railing.
Yeah.
Exploring something that's a little lighter, I think would be good.
Yeah,
The
I
brick
have no
wall says
problem with
don't
going.
enter.
Yeah,
So-
I have no problem with going to an natural aluminum finish for the railing.
Yeah.
Again, we were just trying to carry out the rhythm and context of the street.
So,
But that's fine.
and then,
And it might be.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Staying on the railing for a minute. And this is just a purely aesthetic consideration. Would be, instead of the horizontal or the vertical pickets, because this is a more modern building, that feels a little bit more traditional. But on the rear, you're showing horizontal. A more horizontal sort of approach.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if maybe you consider that the more the horizontal versus the vertical pickets on the front elevation in aluminum color.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have an objection to that at all.
And you're adding a fence to the front also, correct?
Well, if you go to the site,
Yeah.
the fence is set back at the back line of the building, both on the west and east side. So from the front yard's not obstructed. It is at the back line of the west side and the back line of the east side that we're adding the fence and the gates to close off the back parking lot during off hours. And that really came out of a request from the block group.
Okay.
I have 2 comments, questions relating to the fence.
Yep.
One, and this is just like, I always thought that chain link fences were not to code or were needed a variance. Can you clarify that if you know that better than I do?
Well, this proposal was replacing the chain link fence that was damaged chain link fence that was there in kind.
Are the new gates going to be chain link?
Yes.
So would you need a variance for that?
It's chain link fence in front yards are not allowed.
Is that what it is? Thanks, Carl. I genuinely have just always thought it was period. Okay, noted. I would, of course, prefer a 6-foot aluminum fence, but if you are trying to maintain an existing fence, then okay. I will be okay that, but noted that the preference would be, of course, to upgrade the fence in general. My other question, thought, concern is that when we're looking at this plan, the east side, this one that you guys are putting up to secure the back of that adjacent property, can that please move to the front of the property, because you're creating a really dark, like hidden
Absolutely. No, I agree.
channel. And then this is right next to that property that has a ton of foliage, right? So
Yep, it is.
we could make that as safe and
Yeah, we were just,
unsecluded as
to
possible.
your point, I didn't want the chain link on the street. So
Sure, and I get the balance there, but I really do think I would hate to kind of create that little private alley situation right there.
no, that's good.
Otherwise, I agree with the discussion points that my other colleagues have already made. And do you guys have any other variances that you're up against? I know there was like a lot of drama about this property and the use. And did you ever settle if there would be use variances or change of use or anything like that?
No, that's still up for debate because the use of the building hasn't changed.
That's what I always thought, but
so that's
I know
that's
was what some others did not believe. So
that's a discussion in the zoning appeals.
correct. And I know that there was something too, I think, about the hours and use that may or may not impact, or you don't have to answer it now.
Again, yes,
The use is not in our purview, so
yeah.
we would just do design here.
Yep.
Okay, that's all for me then.
Okay. No, so I'm in agreement. Well, I'll let anybody else have any other comments. If not, I can agree to the change in the fence and the front sidewalk to both natural aluminum and horizontal. The gate and the fence style consideration is noted. I'd like to proceed with the chain link, and then I will talk to the owner about the potential of converting the gates and fence that face Franklin to the aluminum horizontal fencing as an option.
Yeah, that would be a really, really nice option. I think that would be appreciated.
Okay.
Would someone like to make a motion to that effect, or do you feel comfortable passing, I guess, with recommendations for those matters, or do you feel like you need to go back and talk to your owner, Mark, and come back? And that's to our committee also, I guess.
The only consideration for the other fence change in the front at the sidewalk, I'm fine with. I'm proceeding with that. The changing just the fence sections that are facing and the gate sections facing Franklin is a minor financial discussion that I have with them, but I'm pretty sure that they would be fine with that.
But the window,
the window division is fine.
5 to 7.
Yeah,
I think it
that's
was
fine.
7 in the original, or
Yes.
to match existing.
Yeah, I can change that back. I agree to that.
Okay.
So are we comfortable then making a motion to approve with the contingencies of going back to a 7 mullion configuration?
Or let's say match existing, because I was
Match
counting from
configuration.
Yep.
street view.
Move the eastern fence gate to the front of the property. And the recommendation to use aluminum fencing at those two Franklin facing gates.
And I think also, I don't know if you want to include the recommendation that the wrought iron in front that's replacing that brick wall is also the aluminum to match.
Correct. The anodized aluminum.
Yep.
It's fun.
I'm
That's
sorry,
the
can I?
motion. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead and second it.
I was gonna second the motion.
I just want to clarify, moving which gate is being moved to the front of the property and where on the property
The east gate right there moved to the front of the building, closer
to the front of the building. Okay, not front of property. Okay.
No.
Uh, I think
Did I
I,
say property? I'm sorry, front of the building.
Nia, you have to say it all over again.
yeah,
You're clear though, Mark, right?
I'm very clear.
Is there a motion and a second? And should I call the roll? Ms. Lamb,
Yes,
Ms. Marinucci,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes as Senate, and Carl, you'll give them instructions on whether or not they need to proceed to your landmarks agenda for this work.
yep, we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank
fantastic.
you.
is there any other business then today?
I do not believe so. Anyone else have anything for the good of the order? Or
Are we meeting? Are we meeting on the 15th still?
I am uncertain just because I'm like filling in because Nate got called out to jury duty. So he is stuck there and he got called and is in like a trial. We don't even know what it's for. So I'm not sure. Carl, maybe Carl or Jessica can let me know. About
Yeah,
that.
I think he and I, we've already discussed that we will not meet on the
Okay.
15th,
So we will reconvene in
January.
January 5th. Okay.
And will Nate send us calendars for the whole of 2023? That's
I
my
will have to do
request,
so.
please. Thank
Absolutely.
you. All right, so we can close the December 1st, 2022 meeting of the Ohio City Design Review Board.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope everybody has a good holiday.
You too.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.